Hey there, love. All right, in this episode, I'm going to give you the 5 surprising things that cycle syncing taught me about my business and about my body that I was not expecting at all, at all. I, like most women who really start cycle syncing, was doing it purely out of the sense of trying to just be a little bit more productive. I was drowning trying to build a business, raise 3 kids, still working at the children's hospital. My husband at the time had just had his brain tumor removed and was having seizures, so he couldn't drive. And so I was the sole driver for our family at the same time as working and taking the kids back and forth everywhere and trying to build this dream of my business. So when I discovered cycle syncing and how when I could arrange just the things in my day and the things throughout my month could make me get things done easier and faster, I was all game on trying to figure this out and trying to make any bit of my life feel simpler and then making it a little bit easier, getting more done in less hours. And so when I started cycle syncing, that really was my main focus. I was looking at how do I become an A+ player? Like, how do I become a more productive player? How do I get to the top of where I'm meant to go and get all the things done without burning myself out in the process? Because let's be honest, I was really probably burning myself out doing all the things of getting up early in the morning and going to bed late at night. And at my lunch break at the hospital, I'd be pumping and eating and messaging people and trying to build my business and trying to finish up my charting and for my patients at the hospital and like all of the things at the time. I'd get home and I would feel so pressured that I still had 1,000 things on my to-do list. And I'd ask my husband to put the kids to bed so that I could just get a little bit more work done. Or I was on edge and irritable because there was just so much that I was carrying. And so for me at the time, just a little bit of simplicity, just a little bit more balance, just a little bit more effectiveness really truly was what I was after. That was what I was craving. But I didn't know that cycle syncing was actually going to unlock so much more for me. It wasn't going to be just this thing that helped me become a little bit more productive and helped me achieve a little bit more, but was going to actually be the gateway to unlocking so much in my business, like so much. And I am putting this episode, I'm saying 5 surprising things, but there's so many more surprising things that I have learned about myself and about my business and about my body because I started cycle syncing and because I started leaning into this. So, number 1 is your menstrual phase is the source of your greatest ideas and often the highest revenue ideas, right? I was really shocked about this one because our periods are not oftentimes that thing that most of us look at as this amazing, beautiful, wonderful thing. Most women wish that we could actually skip it, and a lot of women actually do. A lot of women actually induce like amenorrhea by using birth control or other means to help avoid having a period. But that period phase, one, I teach my clients a lot that it's meant for recharging. It's meant for resting. It's meant for slowing down. But it's also the time when we tap into our biggest ideas. It's the most intuitive ideas, the things where we get so clear on our business and where we're going and what we're creating and what we want to create in our businesses that it helps us like redirect and recalibrate every single month. What I've noticed about the most successful business owners and the most successful people in the world, they're the ones that have the strongest vision. They're the ones that know where they're going and they know what they're creating and they lock into that, not just from a head space, but from a full embodiment space. Like their whole body, every cell in their body, their DNA, like everything is on board with where they're going and what they're creating. And what happens for a majority of us is we just get caught in the doing and the list of 5,000 things that are on our plate that we never actually stop to really recalibrate our nervous system and recalibrate our bodies back into that place where we're going. And so when we're caught in this just doing and going and busy and hustle all the time, we lose out on our most intuitive things. We lose out on really casting that vision of really staying locked into the energetic state of us as the most expansive version of us. And so when I stopped trying to just hustle my way through that menstrual phase and I actually started tapping more into my intuition, when I started tapping more into reflection, when I actually took those pause, One, I started to notice places in my business that were actually doing really well that I wasn't even noticing before, because that's what our brain does, right? Our brain likes to find all the problems that we're doing in our lives. Unless we retrain our brain, a majority of people are focused on the problems instead of on the solutions and the things that are winning. One of the practices that I incorporate inside Inner Circle and Your Cycle Advantage every month is this reflection on the last month and looking at all of the amazing things that we've accomplished, because then we retrain our brains to start seeing those things that are working really well. When we don't do that, then we only find the things that are not doing well. And our brain focuses in more and more and more on the things that we think are important. So if we want more success, we want more things in our business to go well, we want more energy, we want more time, we want more spaciousness, then we've got to start focusing in on that. And the menstrual cycle and cycle syncing was one of the things that actually really taught me how to do that, how to slow down. It is not in my natural capacity to slow down. Like, I am a goer. I am a doer. I am a person who used to get really agitated just sitting on the couch with nothing to do. I used to get so mad at my husband when I'd see him sitting on the couch on a Saturday morning, just doing absolutely nothing. And I'm like, there is so much to be done around here. There's so many things we need to do. That lesson of being able to pause and to still and to be able to tap into those most intuitive, those most like beautiful, amazing $1,000,000 ideas, it took slowing down, and it took creating that spaciousness. And the menstrual cycle and the rhythm that it has and cycle syncing with that was one of the greatest things that I was not expecting. I did not know. It has stepped me into this place of really being in a place of listening to my intuition far deeper than I ever could have imagined and ever expected. Before, I probably would have looked at meditation or breath work or any of these practices that like slow down as a waste of time. I really would not have actually stepped into it. Even last night, I went to yoga and I went to a yin yoga class. And the yin yoga, if you're unfamiliar, is very much like a slow, you just hold one posture and you stay in that one pose for an extended period of time. It's more of a stretching and more of a relaxing. As I was laying there last night, I was thinking the old version of me would have felt like this was a waste of my time and that I needed to get up and do something. I needed to be doing an active flow in my workout. I needed to be moving in my workout, or I needed to be doing something different. That slowing and that stilling and that being pausing felt so unproductive for me, right? Going back to that version of me that was in that hustle mode, that had so many things spinning on my plate that I couldn't sit down, that I didn't feel like I could sit down, to the place that I am now. If I actually looked at my schedule and I looked at the things that I have on my to-do list, it's more now than it was then, but I'm carrying it so much differently now because my cycle and my menstrual cycle and my body have taught me how to create that balance, how to create that homeostasis, how to create that slowness so that I could tap into the most expansive things for me. I am the most grounded now than I've probably ever been in the last decade. And my life is freaking crazy. Even just this last week, but I was telling a friend on Tuesday, between school pickup and the end of my day, from 2:30 to 9:30 at night, I had 9 stops, dropping kids off and picking people up and taking people all over. My capacity now has exceeded far beyond what I felt like was possible. And I feel so much more balanced and so much more still in the process because my cycle has taught me how to capitalize on that, how to maximize that, how to really truly listen to what my body needs when it needs it. Okay. Number 2 is I thought that my cycle was just this thing that happened once a month. I thought my period was the whole thing. I didn't really understand before all of the process that happens inside my body, and that my body was this dynamic rhythm that was happening all month long. And the period is just the encore to the whole month. I didn't realize at the time either that, like, tapping into my cycle, how many more rhythms exist in our world. And I'm admitting this as an occupational therapy and my practice act, like a big part of what we do as an occupational therapist is understanding rhythms and routines and how our brains function in that. And so as I started learning about the cycle and as I started learning about my body and as I started trusting that rhythm and that cycle, I realized how many more rhythms exist within the world. And with the rhythm comes predictability, which creates the freedom. It's what creates the flow. For a long time in my business, I was constantly reinventing the wheel. I was constantly in this creation mode. I would test something and it wouldn't work. And I would go to test something different and that wouldn't work. And I would scrap it and I would go over here. And one, that's partly my human design. I've got a 3 in my human design, and the 3 is the tester and the trialer and the failer. So if you're looking for somebody who's tested and trialed literally probably everything, that is me. I've done that. But in that, it also taught me how powerful rhythm rally actually is. I think as feminine entrepreneurs, and we're tapping into our intuition and we're tapping into listening to our bodies and we're following more of that intuitive feeling sense of us, it can get really easy for us to just jump from one thing to the next because that's what our intuition is telling us and what we're feeling. And so it took me a while to really realize that the rhythm and creating that predictability is what allowed my body and allowed my nervous system to actually exhale a little bit. When I know what's coming and it's already been done and it's a rinse and repeat and refine and enhance sort of system, it's so much easier. It is so much easier. And so in our businesses, when we can create this rhythm, when we can create this predictability, that actually is a big part of what creates the freedom that we desire. It's part of what creates the flow that we desire. It's not what a lot of us are all doing all the time. Like we're always creating new content. We're always creating new offers. We're always creating new launches. We're always creating new strategies. And it wasn't until I really honed in on looking at rhythm as a whole and looking at how do I create this rhythm that exists within the entire ecosystem of my business that's not just in a day to day and it's not just my menstrual cycle. But when I start looking at the rhythms of the seasons of the year, the rhythms of the day, the rhythms of my business, like how do we create this rhythm and this dance throughout every process, it makes it so much easier. So much easier. Okay. Now, number 3, I didn't realize how much shame I was still carrying. And in business, there's so much around visibility and comparison and being willing to be out there. Like if you're running a personal brand, you have to be willing to be visible. We have to be willing to put ourselves out there, put our offers out there, like letting people know how we can serve them, how we can support them, how we're going to make and change their world, the transformation that we can provide for them. And so if we're still carrying these visibility wounds, we're still carrying these shame wounds, we're still carrying all of these things that we don't want people to see, we don't want people to know about, we don't want people to see the real parts of us, we're going to always be keeping ourselves a little bit limited in what we're capable of and what we can create. And if I were being completely honest, it wasn't until just this last year in going through my daughter getting her period and the process there and having those conversations and connections with her that I realized how much shame I was still holding around my period. And I'm admitting this as somebody who talks about periods and talks about cycles and tells women about them all the time and has built my life's work off of periods and cycles. I still didn't recognize how much shame was still built there in my body from years and probably generations previously to me around our cycles and around our bodies. And so, one, I think understanding and leaning into and tapping into that connection with my cycle has allowed me to embrace my body, to embrace my worthiness, to embrace my uniqueness, to embrace the gifts that I have to offer the world in a whole way that I was not expecting whatsoever. It's this beautiful thing when this part of our bodies, like our cycles, have carried so much shame for many of us. There's so much stigma in our society around it. There's so much don't talk about it, that when we can hold that part of ourselves and love that part of ourselves and heal that part of ourselves, that helps us step into this place of being able to show up in our businesses fully unapologetically. Because that wound of what people are going to think about me, this is something I shouldn't be talking about. I shouldn't put myself out there in this way. Like, what are people going to think about me, right? All of those thoughts and all those things that can come into mind, when we can heal that part of ourselves, we show up in the fullest, most expressed way that we can. We actually show up knowing what our mission is, what our vision is, what we're here to actually create, what we're here to do, how we're here to help people. I think one of the things for me in my business, and what I've realized so much, is that as personal brands, we get out there and we put our offers out there, we put our content out there, and we internalize all of the response of, is it going to be liked? Are people going to like this? Are they going to like me? Is it going to be accepted? Is it good enough? Am I worthy enough? And like all of that shit comes into play. And really, in most of the clients that I work with, like coaches and healers and, people who are helping transform other people and helping impact other people, it's not about us. It's about the other people, right? It's about the clients that we're serving. It's about the message that we're putting out in the world. And if we're carrying layers of shame and trauma and stigma and guilt and visibility wounds and all of these things, and like, we don't want to speak up and share about that, we're impacting the people that we're serving. It's not about us. It's about them. And so for me, when I was able to really get really clear on, where am I still carrying this shame? Where am I still worried about what people are thinking about me? Where am I still worried about, are they going to really like this? Is this going to make people angry? Is this going to make people mad? It really allowed me to step more into this confident way of speaking. I had a lot of work to do around that. And my body, and understanding my cycle, and understanding the stories and the labels and the trauma and the shame and the stigma and stuff that was all there around my cycle, helped illuminate that so that it transformed every which way I was showing up. All right, love, if you have not gone over and secured your spot at the Awaken Your Wild Feminine retreat, what are you waiting for? Seriously, this retreat is everything. This retreat has left every woman who's come before leaving feeling like it was the most powerful thing that happened to them that year. It is the catalyst that has allowed so many women to book bigger podcasts, to get on more stages, to sell out offers, to be able to transform the way they related with their family and their kids, and these ripples that change literally every part of their life. And this year, we are going even deeper. Rather than in the past, where we've really tapped into this presence and embodiment and stilling and slowing and tapping into who you really truly are, this year is an activation year. This is a year where we activate that wealthiest version of you. We activate the most feminine, wild version of you. We activate the most present, the most grounded, the most embodied, the most wild, desire-rich version of you. I guarantee that the version of you that steps in on Monday will no longer be there when she steps out on Friday. On Friday, you will walk away so much more magnetic, so much more unapologetic, so much more clear and crystal clear on who you are, where you're going, and what you're creating. This is not for the faint at heart. This retreat is for those who are really serious about no longer playing small and are ready to manifest their quantum leap in any area of their life this year. So if that's you, make sure that you go over and check out reneefick.com/awaken. Again, there are only a limited number of spots at this retreat. I think I've got a total of 10, and they are filling up so fast. So make sure that you go over there and secure one of those spots. Now, number 4 is the patriarchy is embedded in literally everything, and in way more ways than we realize. I will admit, I was never one of those people that was down with the patriarchy, and I still am not. I'm not one of those people that's going to go around down with the patriarchy. I don't feel like that's the best use of our energy, and I don't feel like that's the best use of creating change in the world. But once I started really understanding my cycle and I started understanding the differences between men and women, and I started understanding femininity and masculinity and how those two energies differ and how those show up for us in our businesses differently and how we show up in the world differently, I started to really see how the patriarchy is everywhere. It's in the systems, it's in our workplaces, it's in our structures. It's a big part of me and how I lived my life. It's this voice that's constantly saying we should be doing something every day. We should be pushing through fatigue. We should be productive no matter what. That this like linear level of production, we need to be successful every single day and our businesses need to be in this upward trajectory, and that you know uh, that we have to operate our businesses in particular ways. It literally is permeating everything. It's in our sales systems, it's in our landing pages, it's in our content, it's in our messages, it's in I mean the patriarchy is overarching literally everything. It has created these social constructs. It's created these systems. It's created these ways of being that we oftentimes don't even pay attention to because they just exist. It's been here forever. We've always existed with it. And so the awareness of it that there's could be something different just doesn't, it's not even there. We're not even thinking about it. And recently my daughter and I were talking about something, and it was in the context of racism. And she said something so profound. She said, just because something has always been done this way doesn't mean that it's right. And whether we're talking about racism or whether we're talking about the patriarchy or whether we're talking about business structures or systems or whatever it might be, I think that that is such a valid and important point for us to make. That just because something has been done this way forever, for as long as we've known it, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And I took that as my personal responsibility to start questioning everything, to start questioning why I show up the way I do online. Why do I feel like I have to build my business this way? Why do I feel like I have to keep hustling through? Why do I feel like I need my body to look a certain way? Why do I feel like it's important for my cycle to show up or not show up or whatever, like wherever it's at, right? It's like just beginning to ask those questions of why do we believe this? Why do we operate this way? How is this serving you? How is this not serving you? And I think when we can expand out and start asking those questions, we realize that there's so much more beyond the finite view in which we've been placed in. It's like we're in a fishbowl right now. And when we start asking questions, we jump out of the fishbowl and we start landing in the ocean. We start realizing there's so much more expansion available to us. There's so much more possibility available to us. And it all came back to like understanding my cycle and understanding that our bodies are different than men. And the way I function and the way I show up and the way I feel is different than them. And I love my men, right? That's why I'm never one of those people that's like down with the patriarchy, because our men are amazing and beautiful and wonderful too. And that masculinity holds so much power for us as well. But there's a balance between this toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. And there's a balance of looking at the ways in which our structures and systems have been built. I've been so interested and fascinated and digging deeper into learning like back centuries and centuries ago when women were predominantly the leaders. And where did that shift happen into now it's more of this masculine driven thing with like emperors and kings and, dictators and this more masculine presence in the way that the world operates. And it's fascinating to just sit with that. Like, what would the world look like if it did operate more from this matriarchal sort of perspective, a little bit more intuition, a little bit more community based, a little bit more of the collective focus instead of a singular, isolated personal focus? And just start asking those questions. What would it look like? How could that exist? How would my business shift? How would the world shift? How would my community shift if I started asking these questions? Okay. Now, the last one, well, I had two, actually. There's two parts to this. One is my cycle has taught me things about my body and how to listen and understand my body far beyond what I ever would have expected. I have become so in tune with understanding my body on a pain level, on a cellular level, on a like understanding how do I support my body every single day. I use my Aura ring to understand how what I'm eating is impacting my heart, how my exercise is impacting my body, how my sleep is impacting my body, how alcohol or, CBD or any of these things, how all of these pieces and factors and parts of my life impact the way my body shows up every single day. And using my menstrual cycle as kind of that fifth vital sign of really understanding how is it playing out? What does it look like? How healthy is my menstrual cycle? And so it's really taught me to be more in tune with my body on that physiological level and be able to be an advocate for my health with my doctors and things. But it's this integration of the intuition and the listening and the understanding of my body that has changed everything. This is probably the most surprising, and it kind of ties back to the first one of the sense of listening, but there's a difference between going to Pinterest and grabbing a cycle syncing guide or, grabbing a copy of my book, which is great, right? But even then in the back, I'm like, these last couple chapters are about how do we actually take it and actually integrate it? How do we actually go from this place of a cycle syncing graphic or a chart that says, do this in this phase and do this in this phase and do this in this phase. And these are the things and how you need to structure your life, which is taking us and putting us in another box. But instead, how do we take it and transform that into this place of trusting ourselves, permissioning ourselves to live the most expansive lives that we desire? How do we move differently? How do we support ourselves differently? How do we listen to ourselves differently? Living in this way of like integrating our cycle and embodying our cycles, it's so much deeper and it's so much more than just a graphic. It's so much more than mapping out our calendars and mapping out our to-do list. I love helping women do that. Trust me. I love helping you map out your to-do list and finding where in your body and where in your cycle and where in your calendar are you going to be most aligned to get these things done so that it does get easier. It does feel more balanced. It does feel more predictable. But if we stop there, we're missing out on really what cycle syncing has to offer us. It was for me, learning my cycle and learning how to cycle sync has become the gateway into the deepest parts of how I lead and the woman that I am today. It is the lens through which filters all of my decisions. It's what helps me feel like I'm more sustainable. It was this gateway into tapping into what makes me uniquely me. And how do I love myself? And how do I honor myself? And how do I honor my body? How do I permission myself to take the rest when I need it and to go after my biggest dreams when I want to? And how do I like step into this like fully expressed, unapologetic, like I know deep down I have this vision and this mission and these desires that are innate within me, and it is my responsibility to actually see them come forth into the world. And that's a different thing. That's so different than just putting our calendars on our cycles on our calendars. A lot of women stop there. A lot of women do. But then what happens when your cycle conflicts? When it doesn't show up the way you wanted it to? Maybe it's late. Maybe it's early. Maybe you have a podcast or you have an event that lands at the wrong time in your cycle. And if we're focused only on structure of the cycle in our systems and in our calendars, we're going to miss out on what do we do with that? How do we adjust for that? How do we really tap into the femininity and to the flow and the rhythm and the flexibility and the adaptation that is really innately a part of who we are as women. If you're only looking at creating the structure from your cycle, you're going to really truly miss out on the rhythm and the beauty that it has to offer you and that intuition that it has for you and how you lead and how you show up and how you communicate. It's all different. So in wrapping up, cycle syncing for me, like most women, started as this experiment on how do I become more effective? How do I become more productive? And how do I just manage my energy? But it really opened up something so much bigger, something that goes beyond our hormones, that goes beyond just our bodies, that goes into this sense of who we are, our identity, and how we lead and how we show up every single day. Now, if you are just starting out and you have no idea what the cycle is and like how it impacts the way you show up every single day, I would highly recommend grabbing a copy of my book, Cycle Sync Your Business. It gives a great foundation for you to start having a structure of how do you start listening to your body? How do you start becoming aware of this? How do we start integrating it into our lives? But if you're wanting to go deeper than that, if you want to actually use your cycle and use your body as a way to tap into your intuition, to awaken your biggest, wildest dreams and desires, but have a rhythm and a way of creating it and doing it that doesn't feel exhausting or overwhelming to you, that it feels sustainable, something that you could do for the rest of your life if you wanted, that's what I'm here for. Like, I'm not here just to teach people how to put things into their calendars. I'll help you do that. But I am here to help transform you as the woman who leads your business, to take you on a journey into discovering all that is available to you, the most expansive, the most unapologetic, most fully expressed version of you that is going to show up in the world in the most impactful way. If that is you, that is what I'm here for. If you have not already checked out the Awaken Your Wild Feminine retreat, that is a prime place to start. I guarantee that retreat is like a vortex. The women who walk in are not the same women that come out on the other end. It's almost like you step in and then we shift the timeline and the trajectory for your entire future. So if that is something that you're interested in, is like getting away, coming to San Diego with me, hanging out. We've got this like beautiful, lush venue and the space that we're going to be in, where even just being there and stepping away from your day to day will transform everything. Like those downloads, those ideas, those beautiful, magical next steps for you will drop in so easily. But even then, I've curated the most expansive, the most beautiful workshops and activities that are guaranteed to help you reconnect with your body, to reconnect with that intuition, to reconnect with the most feminine parts of yourself so that we activate this wild feminine in you. The wild feminine is this version of women that I see that are going after big things, that are creating massive things, but they're doing it in the most aligned and beautiful way. So if you have not checked out the Awaken Your Wild Feminine retreat, please do yourself a favor and go do that. And just trust that little inkling, that little nudge down deep inside of you that says, maybe I need to be here. Maybe this is where I need to be. And if that's you, book a call with me. We will chat through it. No pressure. Like, I know without a doubt the women who are meant to be there will be there. And I would love to be able to just hold space for you in helping you decide if that's where you're meant to be or if it's not. So go over to reneefig.com/awaken. And with that, I will see you in the next episode. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.